Hey everybody, welcome back to Blushing Nerd Tarot. It's been a while to say the least. Last time I was on, I think, was for a announcement of a winner on a giveaway, which has been quite a while. So it's funny. I was just as I was prepping to start this recording, I noticed a little message on the studio app I use that said max recording time 6 hours per session. I thought I might actually have to use that this time. There's a lot to talk about. A lot has been going on, and of course, it's kept me away from recording, and I miss it a lot. I really miss the community. I miss all you great folks who have watched and supported me even from a distance. I've had a lot of great messages in the interim. Just wondering what's going on. Just general well wishes, and it's been really lovely to have those reminders of this great community. And I think about things that are of the YouTube realm. How many subs do you have? How many likes do you get? All that kind of stuff that uh, it's often the trappings of this form of content creation, social media. Um, and I really like being a nano channel, like just this tiny little corner of YouTube that nobody knows about except for, a couple hundred people that have subscribed. And that's a great size for me. Um, that's kind of a sweet spot. So I really love the fact that I never feel overwhelmed by the amount of inquiries or emails or messages I get or anything like that. Um, and at the same time, yeah, it's just it's a great thing to be a part of, and to not feel like it's taking over in any way, if that makes any sense. But that being said, there's also, there's almost a mourning that goes on. I find when I'm kept away from it due to life circumstances, um, and I think I had mentioned in maybe in some chats, or maybe I don't remember if I put out something on the community tab. I broke my hand a little over a month ago, and that kept me actually away from tarot in a way, because it was difficult to shuffle. It was difficult to just hold cards, and so what an odd twist that is. I didn't see that coming. It was bizarre, and um, but I found a way around it, and sometimes was still able to work with the cards here and there. But there's there's been travel, and I'll get into that a little bit later. I have some things to share from what I was able to pick up in different places that I traveled this summer. Um, but I also wanted to just generally talk about um, what this community has meant, and continues to be. There's been some controversy back in late spring, early summer. There were some things that circled around, and it happens every once in a while where there gets to be an issue that comes up that sparks a lot of debate. And in some ways, I don't mind those topics when they come up, because I think it helps to keep everyone fresh and mindful of different things that maybe we should all be thinking about. And regardless of what side of the debate you land on, I think debate is healthy, and as long as it doesn't get toxic, or if it doesn't lead to just overt negativity, because that doesn't help anybody. I like to, keep things positive. If you've watched my stuff before, occasionally I might have some criticism of maybe something to do with the physical aspects of a deck or something. But when it comes to practice, and how people spend their time with things like tarot, or any other sort of practice, that spiritual practice, metaphysical, whatever it may be, I'm of the opinion that everyone brings to it, what they want in their own personal experience, and the things that are important to them in their lives. And it's it's a highly personal experience, and who are we as a community or as a group in any segment of society? Who are we to decide that someone's way of interacting with spirituality or any sort of practice like this is bad or wrong or anything else? It's not up to anyone. It's just up to you. What makes sense to you? Um, so it's. I was thinking about this morning too, while I was getting ready for this, and I didn't remember. It hasn't been that long, but sometimes you forget how long it takes to prep to do this sort of thing. For other content creators, you'll remember, or this might resonate with you that just even I don't have a script. I don't plan to do any editing on this. I never do if I can help it. But just to be able to sit down and make sure that everything is set up properly, and fingers crossed it is. I think, I think I'm getting sound right now. I think everything's recording as it's supposed to. Um, but to prep the space and to think about what you're going to say and what you're going to talk about, it's there's a lot that goes into it. But this morning I had some nice companions along the way. I turned on Simon and Sandra's vlog that they did about uh, their trip to Sherwood Forest, and I'm not all the way through it yet. So I got to Major Oak, that section of the video, before I was able to start recording. So looking forward to watching the rest of that. But all that to say, it was nice to have. It just felt like I had some companions. And while I was sitting here prepping and getting things ready to go for this recording, and but it also got me. It just got me thinking about um, taking that time and understanding the gravity of this experience of setting a space um, with intention and grounding yourself and connecting with something bigger. Uh, it's very important, and for me, it is. It's not important for everybody, but I've really been missing this. I've been missing this space, this whatever you want to call it, a studio. Um, but it's also a sacred space. It happens to be where I record, but it's also where I feel most grounded, and I'm able to just relax and kind of let things go. And it's important to have that. I think for me, it's very important, but it's also something that all too easily gets set aside if things are busy, and things have been busy. So I want to make sure that I'm, and I think that's why people put ritual around it. They set aside a certain time of day or once per week. That's been a long standing tradition in religions. Organized religion almost always has a sacred day, and it's a weekly thing usually. Um, and it's funny if you think about the power of that. It draws you back in with your community once per week, and then for those folks who aren't really drawn by that as much, we have these big religious holidays every year, and that and that sort of is the extra push to get people back in at least a couple times a year. So it's funny, we build these humans do this kind of thing. Anthropologically, we just seem to have this drive to find a focus outside of ourselves, some higher power of some sort, and then build ritual around it. It's an interesting aspect of being human, and it's ancient. It's gone on forever. But for some of us, we find that it's something we want to create for ourselves individually. I've been a part of organized religion. Like most, I would say most suburban American kids of the 70s and 80s can probably relate to this big push to try to keep organized religion going. Um, Protestant, Catholic, any sort of Christianity. There was a big push for it back then. Um, it was almost in response to things like Dungeons and Dragons. I remember the big fight between the churches and Dungeons and Dragons, and different things like that. The churches felt like they were losing a battle to um, whatever, anything those days, and really what they were losing to was just attrition. I think people were just not compelled to stick with it anymore for a lot of different reasons. But still, I digress. It's it still remains an important thing for me to find space. Organized religion, not so much. That type of spirituality, not so much. Um, but having this sort of ritual, this dedicating some time to something else is even if it's just quiet, even if it's just meditative moments, I think is pretty important. That being said, I've missed it a lot. Just this sitting down and talking to a camera, knowing that it's more than just a camera, that I'm connecting with people, um, even if it's this bizarre, remote, modern way that we've decided to do this, where I sit here and just talk about stuff for a little while, things that though I have a common interest with a larger group, and then I just sit back and my part is done, and then it's out there and it's available for casual viewing by people, or active viewing where they're commenting and they're thinking about it and maybe then creating their own stuff. But it's an interesting way, a modern dynamic that we've developed to kind of replace some of those things that maybe we used to be driven to do as a larger community, like churches and things like that. Um, but a lot of those messages are just being lost these days. Um, so anyway, that's sort of what's driven me back here. It's something every day, I'll tell you, every single day, I've wanted to get back behind the camera and the mic and just join in, talk about things, um, and reconnect with everybody. So I'm really glad I was able to take this time again. I've been traveling, I've been taking classes, and I'm continuing to do that. I have a little bit of a break now for a couple of weeks, but I'm going to be getting back into it in the fall. So it's going to be a busy time again. However, not all videos have to be super long, and the prep doesn't have to be extensive. Sometimes it's just about hopping on and hanging out with some friends, doing a live, things like that. I've been watching occasionally as I can. I've been watching Ben and Tangi. Was able to catch them while I was traveling, which was a blast. It was one of the few times I've actually been able to catch a live lately. A lot of the lives that I really, really want to be involved in and a part of, whether I'm in the video myself or if I'm just in the chat, and happen during the day while I'm working, and I can't engage like I would like to, and I mean that's fine, and I still get to in some cases watch the playback, and that's what the playback's for, but I do miss being able to connect in chat and just say hi, and sometimes I can't even do that. So if you're out there, Gerald, um, Ben, all you folks who do these lives while during the week, at least during the workday times here in the U.S. I wish I could be there with you. I really do. It's sometimes it kills me to see those notifications pop up and not be able to hop in there. So someday, I'd like to really be able to do maybe find a compromise, and folks have certainly been generous with their offers of accommodating my timeline if I'm able to join in and participate in a live myself. So I hope to be able to do that very soon. So with that, a little bit of coffee, and I'll show you some of the stuff I was able to pick up on my travels. So I went to with my family. We went broken bones and all, lots of stories there. We went to London and Paris, and it was a magnificent trip. I really wish I could have planned some time to visit with all of the UK tarot community folks while I was in the area. But I'll tell you this: we intend to make this a regular trip, and I'm going to reach out to folks next time well in advance so that hopefully we can get some people together, meet in person at long last. Because I feel like even though I mean, I don't know, the distance is great, and we don't always have time to connect remotely, even. But it would be so nice to just be able to connect in person sometime. But I did get to go to some cool bookstores that I've been hearing about from folks like Simon and Sandra and others that live in the UK, live in England, and travel to different bookstores. And so Treadwell's was the first one I went to, and there I got the Visconti Brambilla Tarot, which is an Il Meneghello deck. As you will recognize their wax seal there that they put on everything. But this is a very large deck. It is actually a direct copy of the original, which is found in, let's see, this is copy number 214 of 1200. And it is a copy, and you can see how big this thing is. You know, I don't have a, let me grab a card for comparison here. Let's see, get one of my old, got an old ratty. Look at those edges. Originally cost somebody $6.95. I'm sure I paid a lot more for it than that, because this is a no copyright U.S. games. So not blushing nerd, blushing. I always do that. It's not a blushing fool, but it's an earlier pre-Connecticut copy. So anyway, there's our comparison. So these cards are gigantic. But I've always wanted to get one of these Visconti decks, whether it's the Sforza, which is I really like to get, I think it's the 1996 Visconti Sforza from Il Meneghello that comes in this, at least one version of it, maybe came in this beautiful book-like packaging. It was gorgeous, and it's really amazing. But this is such a cool deck. Look at that. I just love it. Those colors. Anyway, really beautiful. Very excited that I was able to pick this up. Not just anywhere, but to get it in Treadwell's in London was so cool. It was just neat. And I was able to talk to the person working there about how I found out about Treadwell's, which was Simon's channel. We talked about some tarot stuff, some YouTube stuff. It was just really cool because I don't have that here in the same way. We have some metaphysical shops here, some really nice places that I tend to go to on a regular basis. But they don't have great. They have maybe they have a volume of tarot decks, but it's not curated in any way. They tend to, I think, I get I get the sense that they have a distributor that they work with that, like any book distributor, has their catalog of items, and they come in and they tell them what to stock, and so they buy the stuff, and I don't know. They don't really know much about it. They don't seem to care, what they have there. I don't know. Anyway, here's the book that came with that deck, and it is chock full of all kinds of great information about the deck, about its origins, about the imagery, about the art of the time. So, it's is it a deck that you work with? Maybe not. It's not complete because it's an exact copy of the Visconti deck that now lives. I believe it's split between two museums, one in New York and I want to say the other one's in Italy, but I'm not 100% sure. So it's incomplete. It's not a full deck. So I'm sure you could work with it still, but maybe not in exactly the traditional way if you're used to using a normal, more modern system. So, but as a study thing, as an artifact, it's very interesting, and I'm super excited that I was able to get that. And then I went to Watkins Books. If you saw Simon's vlog when he was in London recently, he was there the weekend after me. I can't believe we were that close, but I was in Paris and then on my way home the weekend he was there, so didn't get to connect, but nevertheless, it was cool to be able to watch his vlog of going through Watkins, and I could really picture it because I was just there, so it was neat. But I got Robert M. Place Alchemical Tarot of Marseille while I was there. I do not have any Robert M. Place decks, and they have quite a selection at Watkins. They have, I would assume, are all of those decks there. Some gold foil on the side. Little book that has, kind of all of the basic information. Has some intro info at the beginning for historical reference. It has, longer descriptions for the majors, and then just short little snippets for the minors. So, yeah, just little. But these are the backs, which I thought that's an interesting choice for the backs, isn't it? It's obviously not for reversals necessarily, but then does it really matter if you can see the card is reversed before you flip it over? I don't know if that matters. I guess it depends on how you interact with reversals. I don't. So, very interesting approach. We have some symbolism there, of course, because that's kind of the whole deal here with the alchemical references. We have some descriptions on the cards. So I do think that this will be not only an interesting deck to work with, but also one to use as kind of a study deck. And I feel like I've heard others talk about Robert M. Place's decks as being perhaps more on the study side than the regular practice side. But whatever. Lots of different ways we can use these tools, right? But very interesting and very fun to pick up there in London. So That then also we did go out of town, so it was quite an adventure. We decided one day we would. So there's a train that goes from downtown London, well, from Paddington Station, which we stayed near, goes direct from Paddington to Heathrow Airport. It's called the Heathrow Express. You ride that. It's a quick train ride, nice, convenient way to get to the airport or vice versa. And so we hopped on that to rent a car at the airport because we thought, if we rent the car at the airport, not only are they going to have better hours because we didn't intend on doing a multi-day thing out of town. So we thought, hey, let's just head out to the airport, rent a car, and then from there we can go do a little day trip adventure. So we hop on the train, we get most of the way to Heathrow, and things just all of a sudden slow down to a crawl. The train almost stopped at one point, then it picked up again and started going, and we got to Heathrow. Took the shuttle over to the car rental place, and there was a huge line. And they have these little electronic kiosks that you need to check in on. And they were, one of them was broken. Not so great. The other one was somewhat operational, but didn't actually take. You're supposed to type in a reservation number, and it never worked. So they even had a sign taped up on the wall behind it that said, if your reservation number doesn't work, just proceed without a reservation number. Okay, so everybody would eventually get to that step, and then just it would give you a number, almost like at a deli counter where you pull a number and you wait in line, and they call your number and you go up. So that's what they did, and it took forever. It cut about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours into our day just to get the rental car. So at that point, we had to make some decisions. We had three goals for that trip, that day trip. We were going to go to Stonehenge, Oxford, and Windsor Castle. And we had to make a cut somewhere. Well, Windsor Castle was a booked time for our entry, so that kind of was a fixed point. The other two didn't have times associated with them. So we thought, well, let's see if we can get out to Stonehenge and try. But we didn't really know exactly what we were up against there. So we got there, and there was traffic. There was a lot of traffic on the highway just outside of Stonehenge. But I was surprised to find out that you can see Stonehenge from the road, from the highway. It's just, there it is. And, we have, you have visions as an American tourist who's only seen it in movies before, that it's going to be off in the misty hills somewhere, and you have to hike for hours to get to it and all that. And then we're just stuck in traffic, and we look over, and there it is. So that was interesting. But it still doesn't take away much from it at all. It was just a surprise. So we finally made it to the parking lot outside of the visitor center that they have, and it was jam-packed. I mean, full to the brim, overloading with people. And that definitely made it clear that we weren't going to have time to stick around and actually see it. So from that area, from the visitors center, you can't see it. It's off behind a hill, behind a copse of trees, and you have to ride on this. Well, you don't have to, I don't think, but you can. You can ride on this tour bus that takes you over the hill to Stonehenge. So anyway, we basically went to the visitor center, went to the gift shop, and used the restrooms and got back in the car and left. So it was a little disappointing. We got our pictures from the road, but I didn't want a partial experience there. I didn't want it to be in and out because we had to rush. It was one of the definitive things that made me and my family commit to going back relatively soon and making a day of that trip. Maybe go try to commit to getting there early and spending more time because I think it's worth it. It's a sacred place, and I'd really like to give it more time. So while I was there, though, in the bookshop, I found this book that was very intriguing to me. So, "Miracles of Our Own Making: A History of Paganism," and it says, "At last, we have a history of British paganism written from the inside." So it's by Liz Williams, and I have not started it yet, but that and a little what are they called? Trilophan? I can't remember the name of it, but the rock structures of Stonehenge that look a little bit like a pie symbol. They have plushies. They're little cushions that are like 14 or 16 inches tall. That, of course, we joked about. Wouldn't it be funny if they had a little plushy, stuffed Stonehenge henges, my son called them. Wouldn't it be funny if they had those? And sure enough, they did. So we had to get one of those. It looks kind of like a boxy neck pillow, but it was hilarious, and we couldn't pass that up. So I got the book. We got one of those. We got in the car, and off we went. Went for our tour at Windsor Castle, which was magnificent, by the way. It was fantastic. So really good time there. We did go to Oxford for a short time. My apologies to Oxford for driving on a pedestrian-only road at one point. Oxford is, shall we say, primarily for pedestrians and a little bit confusing. So, in most places, if a road is intended only for pedestrians, they make it nearly impossible for a vehicle to get on it. Wasn't the case on this one section. So I sheepishly popped the car in reverse and found my way back out. But I wasn't the only one. There was somebody else behind me that did the same thing. Now, I could be blamed for them doing it because they were following me. But hey, I don't know. There we were. So we made our way back out without causing any more trouble. We got to see some of Oxford, which is a pretty cool place. That was that. And we went back. We did find out why the train slowed down while we were on our way in. Somebody else told us at the car rental place that they were supposed to be on the train behind us, the next one coming to Heathrow, and it was shut down, canceled. No more Heathrow Express for a few hours because a truck or something hit a bridge, and they had to close the rail service for safety reasons while they did an inspection. So apparently it was all fine though, because when we got back to the airport, no problem. We were able to take Heathrow Express back to London. So worked out. Let's see. And then we went to Paris. We took the high-speed train through the Channel under the channel, and it takes about 2.5 hours to get from London to Paris, which is remarkably quick, and only 35 minutes, I think, under the channel itself, which is really cool. Train goes 200 plus miles per hour, and we got there, and with broken bones and all, we lugged all of our luggage. We should have just taken a cab. We ended up taking the subway, but the metro in Paris, which was a maze of steps and uncomfortableness until we reached the station closest to our hotel. And then we got out and kind of unloaded, and then that was it. We could kind of chill out and relax, do whatever. So Paris was beautiful. I'd like to go back again. We were there for a few days, but it wasn't enough. It was great. We got to do and see a lot of fun things. But I definitely want to go back. Couldn't find any. Well, okay, so there were metaphysical shops. There were places that I could go to try and explore. However, they were all outside of the main central districts where we were spending most of our time. And we were a little more limited in Paris just because we weren't there for quite as long. So that'll be on the list for next time. When so Ben and Tangi had their live readings they were doing, and I barged in on the chat, and it was so great. It was such a fun time. I felt I felt a little bad because it seemed like I might have derailed the process a little bit. But I was just so excited to see both of them, and um, it's a rare treat these days to see Ben and Tangi, especially doing readings and stuff. So anyway, um, I don't remember where I was going with that, but yeah. Oh, so they challenged me to do a little vlog from Paris. Find a deck and a crusty old character that was selling cards or something, and sit in a cafe. And I would have loved to have done that. Maybe next time. Didn't pan out this time, but so that was Paris, and we came back. But I had a couple of things come in at home too. I was on the Kickstarter for, I don't remember which edition it is, but it's the Lonely Dreamer Tarot, which I found out about on somebody's channel. They were talking about it and being on the Kickstarter, and it was coming to an end. So I was able to get in on it by M. Wotherspoon, with insights from Dr. Esther Frankel Tishman. But yeah, so I got on Lonely Dreamer. It hit some extra goals. So it came with things like sticker sheets, which is cool. It's third edition, by the way, the guidebook anyway. Comes with this nice guidebook. It's quite thick. Lots of good information there. I just saw a QR code. I don't know what the QR code is for. Well, if anybody wants to scan that, you can find out for yourself. So, copyright 2023. This is quite an interesting deck. Card quality is nice. It's linen. It feels very durable because it has that linen structure to it, but also a nice flexibility. So, reminiscent of some NPC cardstock, but maybe just a little thicker. Anyway, feels good. Here's the backs. I believe this is a deck that you can get outside of Kickstarter. I don't think you have to do Kickstarter. There we go. So all in the pentacle suit here. This is not obviously not shuffled, but that's a beautiful image right there. So, interesting deck. Have not worked with it. There's a couple things about the choices that were made with artwork, with placement of some of the titles of the cards that I wasn't quite sure about. In fact, there were a couple of cards where I won't be able to find the examples very quickly here, I don't think. But one thing that struck me when I was first looking through it is that it actually looked like the resolution on some of the font or the titles on the cards. It looked like it was poorly done. So almost as if they had to zoom in and then you could see some pixelation, which I was really surprised by actually, because that's one of those things that should be caught in during editing production and wasn't. So bit strange there. Also, right now, the thing that I'm struggling with off camera is that there are cards stuck because they used one of these fillers. Look at that. It's stuck behind. So they used a box filler just for the sake of making the box bigger, which is terribly frustrating. I don't care how big the box is. If I can't get the cards out, I'm not very likely to use the deck. So this might be one that has to go into a pouch or something else, because I literally can't get these cards out. I'm shaking it. I'm trying to get them to line up with this rectangular. You don't need to watch me struggle with this. It's terrible. that's a reality of this deck. Unfortunately, it's a choice that was made in production, and one that does not make life easy on the end user. Okay, another one, long awaited for me. I do not have any of her decks, or did not until now, and it's somebody that I admire quite a bit. Her work has been pretty important to me throughout my journey, and that's Benebell Win and the Spirit Keepers Tarot Revelation Edition. And this is, I believe, the second printing of this, second edition that she announced maybe back in the winter, and people could sign up for it. Limited second printing, yes. And it is copy 1263 that I ended up with of 3168. And she signed it for everyone that was able to get on that, which is good. I feel like I'm late to the game with this one. You know, a lot of people have Spirit Keepers and seem to love it. And I knew of course, it was one that I really wanted to get, but that's the Little White Book, by the way. Of course, with Benebell Wen, lots of great information in there, and it's only the tip of the iceberg. If you don't have any of her books, I mean, she just has such a great depth of knowledge, and what a treasure as part of our community. She's a willing participant in live streams, and has been in interviews and things that it's just great. She's just, I don't know. It's really nice. So beautiful gold gilding there. She actually released a video talking about how the cards were sticking together and maybe a little difficult to shuffle because of see if you can, little ASMR of the matte finish there. I haven't found that to be the case at all. I think I think the finish is beautiful, and I haven't found any issues with sticking. And I think, as with all of her stuff, the artwork is beautiful. The layout, the choices she made for the quality of the materials, everything is just so well done. But who's surprised? Not me. Really nice deck. And I have not had time to properly explore it. But it's one of those things that I just have it sitting there waiting, almost as a big indulgence, because I know one of these days I'm going to have some time to set aside to dive in, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm just kind of hanging on to that almost as a prize, for when I cross a finish line in some of these classes I'm taking or something. Like, maybe it's silly to delay it that way, but it's fun to have something to look forward to, and it's a treat. So I think that's all for acquisitions for the collection. Yeah, I don't think I've had anything else new since I last did a video. No, I think that's about it. So not a lot of buying of decks, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that I haven't really been engaging much. My hand is now better. I think I'm in a position where shuffling is not going to be painful or impossible, because it was impossible when I had a cast on. Maybe I'll find some more things, but I have looked. I've been kind of just watching for new decks that come out that excite me in some way, and haven't seen a lot, honestly. But I could be missing some things. So I don't know. Drop some things in the comments if there are some new decks. That's mostly where I find the decks I'm interested in, is through the community, through people mentioning things in chat, or if I'm watching somebody else's video and they review a deck. Actually, Simon has had some on recently that have been very intriguing, that um, that I haven't pulled the trigger on yet, but I'm interested in. So I'm gonna check those out again. So let me know. Let me know if you've seen some stuff that's exciting to you, and I'll check it out. So that is basically all I had to come on for today. It's a lot. I guess we've been on 45 minutes or so, but I just want to touch again on the idea that this is it's an outlet for me to be able to do this. It's a privilege. I'm excited to be able to sit down and do this, sit in my space again, and light some incense and light some candles, and just be with the cards, be with you folks. It's a privilege, and it's one I don't take too lightly. Sometimes maybe I put too much pressure on myself that might prevent me from just sitting down and making a video. But I do look forward to doing more lives. I've been thinking about that as well. I know it's tarot is an interesting thing, um, to put it mildly. It's it's something that is highly personal, but then also has this universality to it that lends itself to an interesting form of criticism in the form of people trying to box it in and maintain a certain image, a certain set of rules and regulations that fit their practice. People have talked about gatekeeping in tarot, and that's an interesting concept because I do think it happens. It happens in subtle ways too, because people say or talk about how there's a certain way to do things, and it's the right way, and if you don't do it that way, you're somehow doing it the wrong way, and I don't buy into any of that. I mean, there's if I do readings for someone else, readings for myself, reading if you're doing readings for yourself, that is like that's great, and you should do it in whatever way makes sense to you. Doesn't make any difference if you're using spreads that are designed by somebody else. If you're using your own spreads, if you're pulling one card and that's all you ever do, great. That's fine. That doesn't make you don't have to do anything. You don't owe anyone a certain type of practice that somehow legitimizes all of it. But if you're reading for somebody else, I say the same is true, but with this little caveat. I think kindness should be your top focus. But is that me just putting my stamp on things? Yeah, maybe it is. So, in any case, if you're doing readings for somebody else, if I'm doing readings for somebody else, let me talk about just me. It's not about what you do or how you do it, because you do it however you want to do it. But for me, if I'm doing readings for somebody else, I just want folks to know that does any of it mean anything? Really? And the answer is somewhere between what I pull from the deck and what I say about it. Somewhere between there and your perception of what I pulled and what I say about it, a transition happens. Something becomes real about that exchange that doesn't really have anything to do with the cards. And it doesn't really have anything to do with me and my way of interpreting the cards. nor does it have anything to do with you and your interpretation of what I said or what card I pulled. It's of its own. It's really an independent phenomenon. That's how I feel about tarot. That I feel like there is a thing that is created, and I feel like it's both real and not real. I think there is a phenomenon that occurs when I pull a random card out of a deck and I say a thing about it, that usually what I'll say about it has something to do with the person that I'm reading for, or their situation, their question. It'll have something to do with that because that colors what I see in the card or the cards. That wouldn't be the same for anyone else in any situation, and may be different even between decks. Um, but between that pull, that card pull, my interpretation, and what you perceive from that, that's where the magic happens. Because it honestly, it doesn't have anything to do with the cards on their own. It doesn't have anything to do with me. It doesn't have anything to do with you. It has to do with the combination of those things all happening at once. So people can say what they want about tarot as a metaphysical force, as a spiritual exercise, because I think all of those things are true. It's also just cardboard, paper coming from a factory. That's also true. But there's something that happens when all of it comes together that spawns something really special. And it can be very informative. It can change the course of things because it shakes it up, because it makes you look at something in a different way. It's really, I think, fantastic in that way. And you can do that with other things. There are other spiritual exercises that bring that kind of conclusion or outcome or something. And it can be crystals, it can be palm reading, tea leaves, it can be pendulums, it can be all sorts of things that do that. But right now for me, and it has been for a while, tarot seems to be the tool for me that does the most work, and works well as a system to bring those outcomes and to bring things into light. And a lot of that is just a matter of having some random thing that matches our human experience in various little ways, and we pull those random pieces out and they combine, and then that's where that connection and that magic happens, where I look at the cards and I read the cards and you interpret, and vice versa. Somebody's doing a reading for me. They pull the cards, they talk about the cards, and I'm listening to the words they're saying, and I'm looking at those images, and without that full combination of things happening, there's really nothing individually magical about any of the single components. It's just when everything comes together and acts like that. So that's where I am. That's what I'm thinking about. And I'd like to do more readings. I'd like to join in with more lives and engage with the community more often. Whether or not I can make that happen in my life right now, I don't know. But I'm not going to make any promises because it's been challenging to set aside the time. But I'm going to try. I'm going to hope that I can do it. Some of it is just a matter of setting aside a little bit of time just to come down and do it. And if I write it down, maybe if I tell Siri to remind me to come down here, maybe that'll accomplish something. But in the meantime, it's been a lot of fun to come back to sit behind the chair, behind the camera, and and do this again. So I will look forward to the next video the next time, and perhaps do a live real soon just to see everybody in chat, make that connection. So look forward to seeing all of you, and thank you very much for joining in. I'll see you on the next one.